So, with my videos, I always address certain questions, especially where the prospects or even clients have even asked me just before my getting to work with them, right? This particular question, how do I grab attention on my website? Yeah, it's a good question to ask. And I wanted to make sure I created a video around this so I make sure that you guys equally also know how can you grab attention for your website. So now, as a branding specialist, these particular questions will always obviously pertain to the idea of branding and then some. And I want to share with you in this video exactly what you can do to make sure that you are hitting the nail on the head once again, as always, when it comes to your brand, and more specifically when it comes to making sure that you are grabbing attention on your website. So now, my name is Tanya and I'm the founder of the T&G Designs Group Limited. If you are new here to my channel, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for watching this video, number one. Number two, make sure you go ahead and like and subscribe to this channel because, as always, I want to make sure that as many people as possible get to grips with what it is that I'm sharing here. I'm all about branding, and more specifically, I'm about branding that helps you to stand out above your competition and equally to stand out, show up, and even get noticed in a way that's congruent to your beliefs, your brands, and what it is that you really, really stand for. Also, that you can make sure that you create sustainable and even more profitable growth, because that's what it's about, right? But at the same time, it's also making sure that you hit the nail on the head with your brand in a way that allows you to not lose yourself in the process. So that being said, folks, please make sure that you go ahead once again and like and subscribe to this channel because I share content just like this and a hell of a lot more. And more specifically, stick around to the very end because there are key principles that will help to elevate all this information that I'm sharing with you in the first place. So now, that being said, let's get straight into it. So as I said, I'm going to be addressing the question of how do I grab attention on my website. This particular question is a super cool question to be able to answer, as well as I'm super glad it was asked by many folks. And when you get to grips with how to make sure that you are grabbing attention on your website, you will understand, it's going to click for you. It's going to make sure that you are keeping things concise and making sure more specifically that you're keeping things purposeful and specific to the topic or subject or even purpose once again as to why you're actually building the awareness around your brand in the first place. So that being said, I want you to go back and watch a few of my videos talking about the idea of how to build a website, e-commerce website, or even a personal branded website. But before you do, make sure you watch this video because there are key things here that I'm going to be sharing with you that will help you to elevate within your brand aside from all of that. But it's also going to be making sure that you are actually talking sense on your website. Also making sure that you are going to be hitting the nail on the head to specific audiences that you actually want to be talking and working with, more specifically, that will actually help you to not only engage, but to also eventually turn your viewer into a lead and then eventually into a client. Now, that could only happen when you start addressing key things and you start from here. Even if you are addressing these key things, amazing, at least you're ticking things off the list. But make sure you watch this video to ensure that these things are actually happening for you. Because if they're not, and you're not getting the results that you're looking for, well, address key things, switch things up a little bit, and let's see if it actually works for you. These key things are actually things that I've actually done to help my clients who have gotten the results that they're looking for, all because they've continuously implemented them. And that's one of the key little tips in there. It's all about keeping consistent with them. That being said, let's park that to one side for a minute, and I want to concentrate on these key things. Now, there's actually 5 things I want to make sure that we are addressing here. But the first thing that I want to make sure that you are being consistent on, and I'm talking about consistency throughout all of these things, by the way, is the idea of how eye-catching your visuals are. And I know a lot of the time people will probably say that, you know what, Tan, what is it? It's not about the images, it's about the words that I'm sharing with or sharing about, and it's all about the message. Now, yes, they all go hand in hand, but your images, believe it or not, actually do lend a huge hand into the amount of attention that your audiences are paying attention with, right? Now, here's why. If, for example, you have an image that has no relation to what it is that you're even talking about, it's going to be super distracting, and it's going to push your audience's attention away from the cause or the thing that you're actually talking to them about in the first place. Make it super relevant. Also, make sure that you're including yourself in on these images. Now, a lot of the time, I've always had people say to me, but Tan, I don't need to be in these images. It's all about the business. It's all about the this and the that. But no, people are investing in you to a certain extent. So they need to know who you are, what you look like. So include yourself in on the action. When I'm talking about action, I'm talking about the images. How are you helping people? How are you even showcasing that? Are you including action shot images? And what I mean by that are these images actually showcasing you in situation as to how you're actually helping these people? For example, if you're a trainer, if you're a coach, if you're somebody who's in the photography business, are you actually showcasing images that show you in action? Do that and watch the attention change. People will start realizing and resonating with what it is that you're doing even more, simply because you're showing an example of it. And that's essentially what you're doing with your images. Show an example of who you are and equally how you can also help people. Now, the second thing that you should also really consider including are powerful hooks. Now, for me on my website, I literally keep it so super short and simple as to what my purpose for my website or purpose for the message that I'm delivering to all others, and equally how I actually work with them. It's brand, boost, and build. Those are the three key things that I want to make sure that people who are coming to my website will know that this is what I'm going to be talking about. So what's your hook? You can be even more clever with your words, okay? But at the same time, don't spend too much time on this to the point where you're spending 10 years on this one hook. Please don't do that. There are so many AI tools out there, but equally there are so many ways to be able to make sure that you're listening to feedback to understand what that hook should be in the first place. For me, brand, boost, and build are the key points that I want to make sure my audience understands when it comes to the journey of building their brand. This is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be branding, creating your brand. Equally, we're also going to be boosting your brand by way of promotion, by way of marketing material, however that may be. But also, I want to make sure that off the back of creating those foundational elements, that we're also going to be building on from that. So it's understanding that bigger picture. What is it for you? How are you making sure that that hook then leads into what it is that you're about or what it is that you're trying to do for your audience off the back of your hook? That's how powerful it needs to be. But at the same time, it also needs to create that level of intrigue. For me, it's a case of my audience are probably thinking, what about branding, boosting, and building? What is it? But it gets them to think and to question. Essentially, you're wanting your audience to also question, but question with a purposeful intent, as in the intent should be to want to find out more. Okay? Now, moving on to this next part, which reinforces your hook. How are you making sure that you're really hitting the nail on the head with that hook in the first place? So using an attention-grabbing hook, but equally using an attention-grabbing short, sharp, and concise paragraph that literally hits the nail on the head as to, number one, who you're actually targeting, but equally how you can help them and what it is that you can really, really do for their own bigger picture. What is that for yourself? Please make sure that you're always addressing that. And that's how you make sure that you start creating a website that actually grabs attention. Now, let's move on to this next part. So we talked about the idea of, being consistent with the look and the feel of everything, the boldness of your imagery more specifically. But then also, and by the way, let me just add on to that, make sure that you're consistent with your branding colors and your fonts as well. Please do not throw 1,001 different colors at your website, nor should you do the same with using 1,001 different fonts. I would say use a maximum of about 3 to 4 different colors or even 5 different colors maximum. And then equally also use maybe 2 or 3 different fonts. And I'll share with you exactly what you can do with those in a minute. However, don't create confusion. If all else that you take from this, take this message with you. Don't create confusion. How can you create clarity? How can you make sure that your audience has a focus-driven directive which allows them to not only find out about you, but equally know how to move on with you in the first place? Think about that. Side note. Right, now let's get back into it. So, as I said, we've talked about bold imagery, right? And how to make sure that that stays consistent to your brand. But equally also, we've talked about the idea of powerful hooks, right? And how can you make sure that you create a level of intrigue that is relevant, but still allows your audience to want to find out even more. Now, this third thing that I want to make sure that you're doing is the idea of making sure that you're creating that interactive experience. And here's what I mean by that. I'm not talking about including a whole bunch of interesting gadgets and gizmos on your website. No, keep it super simple, and simplicity is the key here, by the way. But when it comes to the idea of building an engaging website, or more so specifically building a website that really grabs the attention of your audience, make sure that you're creating an interactive experience that is user-friendly, that creates, remember I said before, a directive guide to help your audience to understand where they're going to be starting, what they're going to be doing next, and what that process actually looks like, all the way through to how they're going to be finishing or ending up with the result that they're actually looking for. Help them to understand that journey. Help them to understand each step that they're going to be potentially taking with you along their own journey. So make that known to them. When I'm talking about interactive experiences as well, the other thing that I want to make sure that you're thinking about is how do you make sure that you're constantly getting your audience to answer questions within their mind? Because when they're engaging in that kind of a way, they're thinking about your services even more so. They're thinking about how you can help them even more so. Get them to question certain things. For example, for me, I always use a tone of voice that allows a personable feel to be had on my websites or any content that I'm putting out there. And by personable, I'm talking about the idea of helping my viewer or my audience to understand that I'm talking directly to them. So I'd be literally using content or wording to say you, or to say, do you know what I mean? You understand? Here's what I mean by that. And I want you to understand it because I get how you feel. So I'm talking directly to my audience. How are you making sure that with your own language, you're also creating that interactive kind of experience that allows them to get you're talking to them, if it's relevant to you, but more specifically, that allows them to question these experiences that you're not only having or had, or equally your clients have had, versus how those experiences can now apply to them or have applied to them in the past. Because essentially, especially when it comes to the idea of telling your story, for example, especially in your About You section or creating your bio, you would have had experiences that your audience would no doubt be able to resonate with. And when they're resonating with something, that means that they're feeling that thing because they're now ready to move on to the next stage. They've connected with you without even getting to physically meet you. So make sure you create an interactive experience that happens by way of allowing your audience to literally answer the questions that you're asking them. Now, this next part. Now, we're on to number 4, by the way, folks. So I want to make sure that you're keeping up, number 1, but 2, I've kind of mentioned this already, but the idea of ease and keeping it simple is the next thing you want to make sure that you keep consistent throughout your website, especially when it comes to the idea of having an attention-grabbing website. Keep things super concise, keep things super simple. More specifically, make sure, again, you're keeping the direction of your audience's attention super clear. Help them to know and understand what it is that you want them to do, because you want them to do something, which is to take action. You want them to move from the general space that they're in, that they know deep down that they're ready to move from. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you're creating information, you're creating a way forwards and an example of a way forwards to get them to the next step, and then the next step, and then the next step, and so forth. So how are you making sure that you keep that direction moving in order for them to get to their end goal? And another little hidden tip in there, where I mentioned to you before about how you can actually use your colors and your 3 different fonts if you've got them in different kinds of way. This is how you can use them. Now, your colors, say for example you have 5 or even 3, right? Your colors can actually help your viewer to understand when you're talking about key and specific things. So for me, I have roughly about 5 colors that I typically use. However, there's 3 main ones that I will really focus in on. Now, the 3 main ones that I use are my primary color, which is the yellow, the sunshine yellow color. The other 2 colors are like a reddy pink rosy color, and then equally also a super fluorescent green color. Now, those 3 colors in particular, those are the 3 colors that I will typically use throughout a lot of my branding. The yellow color is how I introduce myself, is how I welcome others into wanting to find out about myself. The pink color or the rosy red color is what I use to be able to talk about key specific facts. And then I've got the fluorescent color, the fluoro green peppermint color. That's my interruptive color, and I want to make sure that I use this color anytime that I'm talking about key specific bits of information that really hones in on the attention that I want to have in on that specific subject. Now, do I use it a lot? Probably not, but at the same time, when I talk about key bits of information that I want to draw my audience's attention to, I will use that more specifically as a background color, but at the same time, it can actually also be used for writing as well. And on the note of writing, let's talk now about fonts. Your fonts can be used in so many different ways. If, for example, you have 3 particular fonts, these are the type of fonts that I want to make sure that you are cluing yourself up on. And actually, I've got a video that I'll drop a little card here or here for you to go ahead and check out the type of fonts that can actually be suitable for your brand. These fonts that I want you to use, so to consider using if you don't already. Use a heavy set font, use a standard font, and use what I call a conversational font. Now, the heavy set font can be bold fonts. So anytime you're using a headline, for example, look to magazines for inspiration, by the way, folks. Those are great areas of resources to be able to check it out. Even check out somebody else's website, and you'll be able to see how a heavy or bold font can actually be used. Now, use them for headlines. Use them for key bits of information that you want to make sure that grabs your audience's attention. So, for example, if you only have 1 main branded color or 2 main branded colors, your font weights, is what I'm essentially referring to, will help you to draw attention in a different kind of a way. Now, the second weight of font that I would love for you guys to use is a standard font. And I'm talking about a nice, easy, legible kind of a font. It can be serif or sans serif font. Again, check out that video that I was talking to you about to understand what a serif and sans serif fonts are. But it can also be a way for you to share heavy loads or main body text within your content. When I'm talking about main body text, I'm talking about slightly larger paragraphs, so key bits of information that requires a little bit more of a description and information to be included within it. So use those regular fonts to be able to do that. Now, this conversational font, this third one that I would like you to use. Use this conversational font to literally create a conversation. Use it as a talking tool, if you like. Anything that you really want to pull out as your tone of voice, for example, the way that you're using to motivate your audience to move, use that specific font. Now, I will say, just to add a little caveat in there, I wouldn't necessarily use that conversational font on your buttons, only simply because of the size of button that you may have to use within your website. But at the same time, use it big and bold. Use it to highlight certain paragraphs. Even use it to break up paragraphs. And on the note of paragraphs, please do not write essays full of wording on your website. Keep it super short, sharp, and concise. Okay, all right, that's enough of that. Let's get straight into number 5. This is the last one that I want you to be consistent with and equally to consider when it comes to how to make sure that you grab attention with your website. Now, this last one is something that, yes, a lot of people do. However, they don't use it to the fullest of its ability. And I'm talking about how are you using your call to action. Now, your call to action, some people use it as simple as, hey, contact me here, or this, that, and the other, or email me here. But what if you actually changed up the language of your button? What if you actually use something that was super short and super directive that calls your audience to action? And I'm talking like, for example, hey, jump in with me here, or hey, get started with me here, or hey, find out more here. Or again, depending on your tone of voice, why not give me a call here? Or why not write to me here? Why not even the idea of pop in and let's get started? But what I'm essentially trying to do here, folks, is to get you to think outside the box just that little bit that allows your viewer to feel more relaxed in wanting to come to find out even more or even work with you. So really think about how those key points can actually resonate with you, but equally more so, how can they actually work with you? Now, if you are stuck go ahead and drop a comment underneath this video, and I will come back in and make sure I respond to you. There are many ways to go ahead and find out even more information about how to work with me, but at the same time, if you're just trying to make sure that you just get yourself off to that next level, go ahead and drop a comment underneath this video. Now here's what I'd like you to do next. And make sure you go ahead and click on a link that's underneath this video as well. When you click on that link, you're going to get asked just a few questions that I'd love for you to go ahead and fill out. But at the same time, once you've done that, then I can fire over to you some key principles. Now, these principles are going to be ways that will allow you to understand not only how can you level up your brand even more so, but more specifically, how to make sure that you build a noteworthy brand that stands out from your competition, that allows you to build a recognizable reputation for yourself, because at the end of the day, repetition equals reputation. Not only allows you to do that, that will also allow you to build better connections that help you to attain sustainable growth. Because at the end of the day, folks, we're growing. And when you're growing, these things will naturally happen. But you have to start with key principles, such as what I'm going to be sharing with you, in order to be able to take your brand to that next level. And in order for you to be able to build on that brand reputation in a way that's congruent to your beliefs and what it is that you actually stand for. So folks, I'm going to leave it there. Please make sure you go ahead and like, subscribe to this channel, check out those principles, and folks, I will see you on the other side.